Today we are talking about birth defects specifically because within her group, they are marrying uncle and niece pairs, even half siblings are getting married off. And because it's polygamy, there are hundreds of kids and then they end up marrying each other. And so the incest just goes way, way, way back. So for those who aren't familiar with the Kingston group, can you talk about why you're supposed to marry up into the bloodline or how that works?
Yeah, so it started with Ortel Kingston, my grandpa, who's the second leader of the order, and his first wife was his niece. And they believed that the Kingston bloodline is that we are direct descendants of Jesus Christ or the 12 tribes of Israel. So we were this pure blue blood, and what you would see is like me, for example, because I'm Kingston. My dad is half brothers to the leader, so now I would have to be married to someone. I would have to marry a cousin or closer, someone who is closer related to the Kingston bloodline. So because I'm Kingston, they were trying to make me marry a Kingston who was Kingston on both sides, his mom and his dad. So his dad and mom were half siblings.
And that was your cousin.
Right. His mom was my dad's full sister, and his dad was my dad's half brother. So it was to kind of make sure that we're intertwining that bloodline. And it all started, like, again, like I was saying, by the second leader, Ortel. His first wife was his niece. He went on to marry three of those, I believe it was three of those sisters that were all his nieces, could only really successfully bring a baby to full term and pregnancy with one of them. And he was getting frustrated because obviously, like, your genes just start not working and being
Yeah.
compatible with each other. But that's where the belief stems from, is this. They have this idea of this supreme race that the order just happens to have, and it's direct descendant of Jesus Christ or the 12 tribes of Israel.
Wow. I remember one of the interviews I did with, I think it was either Joe or Nephi, said that in order to get the priesthood or to get up a certain level, they had to memorize the lineage. And I was like, how do you memorize something that isn't real? And
Wait,
they're like,
to memorize all the way back to Christ?
yes.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that.
Really?
No, it must be a men's thing, because
Yeah.
women don't get the priesthood or the numbers or anything.
Yeah. And for those who aren't familiar, I grew up in mainstream Mormonism, so I know a little bit about Mormonism and the fundamentalism and everything like that. And I've interviewed so many of you guys now from the order. We have a huge playlist of order interviews that you can go watch after this. So what was the story allegedly that happened? Actually, let me pause for a second. I'm just going to put a major content warning because we're going to be talking about children and fatalities and really hard things to hear. So just be aware as you're going through this. If you're pregnant, maybe don't watch this one. I was struggling because we've been talking to a lot of your family lately while I was pregnant. I just had my baby, and it is a lot to take in when you are growing a child. So just be aware of that. So the story that you had told me before about the baby who had passed and the leader who was keeping it.
Oh, yeah. So back to Ortel, Ortel being the second leader of the order and the first one that I know of that started to perform incest marriages. So he was getting very frustrated. Like I was saying, he married those three sisters, but only could get one of them to have babies full term and actually have these babies live. His other wives were having pregnancies where they would miscarry early on, or maybe there was a couple that made it full term, but they were stillborn. So I had heard, obviously I wasn't there at the time, so this is all from, piece by piece, getting older generation X order members to discuss what they had heard growing up in the order. And it was that Ortel, the leader at the time, was starting to get very frustrated with the fact that he's like, why can't these babies be born? And this is supposed to be the pure bloodline of Christ. So in his brain, he's like racking his head, like, this is God's church. This is what I'm assuming. And he was caught having a trigger warning. We already did that, right? He was caught having a deceased infant in the trunk of his car. And this is what members were saying, ex-members. They were saying that he was trying to do his own test to try to figure out what the issue was.
As if he could figure it out.
I think that these men just live on this pedestal and they're like, what? When things don't go the way that they had planned. They're so in shock because no one ever tells them no. Everything usually goes the way they want because everyone's like bowing down, right?
Yeah.
So then when he has the premonition that he's supposed to be marrying his nieces, yet they seem to not being able to have his children, he's like, what's happening? We're wasting time. Like, so he himself was thinking that he could somehow figure out what the issue is and get it fixed. And then I can't remember who it was, but it was another member who was high up in the church found out that he was driving around with this corpse in his trunk, and he was like, "Hey, so I get what you're trying to do here, but if you get pulled over by the police and they see this, this is not going to be a good look for you." And so my question was always, well, I knew that of this place called it was like the Bountiful, people called it the Bountiful Baby Graveyard. And I believe at the time, because the church started in Bountiful, and there had to have been so many deaths like this around that time where they first started experimenting with incest, that I believe that there is a whole graveyard in Bountiful dedicated to these babies. Because you also think of too, like, they're having all the babies at home.
Yeah.
And
No prenatal care.
right. And back then too, I even heard stories of members not even getting birth certificates till they were like 8 years old. And I was wondering, is it because they want to make sure that the baby's actually going to live? And so if they don't get the birth certificate, they don't have to document it, and they just go bury it.
Oh my gosh.
That's when I believe blood testing is born. You see all of these issues back then, and then now we're not seeing as many issues as they had back then. And I believe it's because, I don't know if it was Ortel or Paul who started this system of collecting the children to blood test them to see which sibling can marry which sibling, which uncle can marry which niece.
Yeah, because to clarify, they're still marrying half siblings
to this day.
and uncle nieces.
Right. My dad's third wife is his own half sister. The leader has 27 wives. Of those wives, 3 of them are his own half sisters and 2 are his nieces. All procreating, by the way. And it's always hush hush. Even though you're in the religion or the cults, you don't even know what's happening under your nose, you know? But one of Paul's wives, who was also his sister, was pregnant. Everyone knew she was due in like a couple weeks. She was about to have her baby, and then she didn't show up to church for a while, shows up with no baby. And I was hearing this story from another mother, and the mother went up to her and was like, "Hey, did you have your baby? Congratulations. Where is it? Where's the baby? Is it a boy? Is it a girl?" And she just looked down and walked away. And no explanation. There was no funeral. No one talked about it. So rumors started to run around of like, oh, maybe because they're siblings, something happened and we don't want to talk about it.
Something happened as in worse than a stillborn situation?
We don't know. Because what we do know is today they're encouraging abortions. They will get a
genetic testing.
Right. They'll start with the blood testing, get the niece to marry the uncle, and then even after she's pregnant, they will test the baby before it's born. And so for me, I don't fully understand. Maybe at that time they didn't have it because she was far along when this happened, when the leader's wife all of a sudden just like didn't have a baby. So I wonder if it's actually new technology that they have now, where they're checking to see in the womb if there's an issue, and then they're encouraging the mother to discard the fetus and then try again.
Oh my gosh, that's so heartbreaking. Well, having just been pregnant, I can comment on this. So it's not even new technology. I'm pretty sure that genetic testing has been around for a while, but they just haven't chosen to give women prenatal care to have access to it.
Yeah, and this is what I wonder, is that they don't have access to, because no one in the public is going to be okay with, if they knew. So I think they had to figure out to get someone to go to school and then bring that knowledge to an order facility, to the clinic.
It's just a blood test. They could send it out to any lab.
But the ultrasound though, right? Or
it's not through an ultrasound.